In the past 3 days, dozens of people have sent me a video by Jim Lil where he apparently debunked the Neve sound. He proved to everyone with science and measurement and some test equipment that a vintage Neve, a holy grail preamp, sounds exactly the same as his $100 Focusrite Scarlett interface, and that the distortion that comes from this Neve is identical to a basic Clipper plugin. Today, I'm going to do my first and hopefully my last debunking video. Because I'm actually not a fan of making videos like this, but let's get into it. See, in Jim's video, his results are very hard to argue with. He uses a ton of data, he talks very, very fast, and he comes at it from many, many different angles to try to prove his point. But I feel like a lot of people are leaving that video with the impression that preamps don't matter, that they all sound the same, that they are irrelevant and interchangeable. Well, not the impression, he literally says that. And this is just simply not the case at all, and today I'm gonna prove it to you. But the whole time I'm watching his video, I'm like, what is his motivation for doing this? What's the reasoning behind making a video like this? Oh, his PayPal address that he throws up on the screen multiple times and asks for money. Oh, that's not it. He's got a course he's selling that he talks about at the end. Got it, okay. Throughout his video, he continually says this saying over and over and over, but what do I know? I'm just a performer. And that is very obvious to me by how much he got wrong. Now, the reason people are blowing me up about this video is because I am probably pretty uniquely qualified to discuss this subject. I'm one of the only people on planet Earth that has a preamp with my name on it. But guess what? They're sold out. We're not making them and we're not selling them. So don't get it twisted like this is some sort of a sales pitch. See, anytime you see any sort of controversial videos or topics, you gotta ask yourself, what are they selling? Because it's always something. But I have turned off ads on this video. There are no sponsors on this video, and I don't even have affiliate links in the description down below. I will quite literally make 0 pennies off of this video. So don't get it twisted like this is my sales pitch. I'm the guy on YouTube for 8 years who has been talking about the importance of putting preamps on your mix bus and experimenting to find out which ones are the best option because they all sound different and they all do different things. Jim's video that they all sound identical and that they are pointless because you could just run into a $100 Scarlett interface is the easiest thing in the world for me to disprove because I've been doing it for 8 years on YouTube. So much so, I didn't even have to film any examples to disprove it. So here's a clip from a video that went up 8 months ago where I ran the exact same mix out of Pro Tools through 4 different pairs of preamps, literally for the point to show you how different they sound. Now, if you can't hear the difference between those, your ears are probably not at a level that makes you qualified to even debate this subject because the difference in those is shocking, even with YouTube compression. But if you're still not convinced, here's another clip from another video that went up many months ago where I play the exact same acoustic guitar through the same microphone in exactly the same position through those same 4 preamps again. Did you hear a difference? Because I certainly did. That's because preamps sound different. They saturate different, they have different EQ curves, and they have varying levels of raising the LUFS, or saturating so they lower dynamic range. So in addition to this, Jim made a giant deal about how everyone records on this Neve console with the fader at unity. That is the standard, that's what everyone does. This could not possibly be further from the truth? And as you can see in this next clip that I recorded 3 years ago, there is a channel fader knob on my preamps for the exact use case of getting varying levels of saturation. You put the input down and the fader up, you get a cleaner sound. You turn the fader down and the input up and you get a dirtier sound. Here we go. Okay, so I want to walk you guys through the range of tones available in this. Now, this is your input and this is your output. You can look at this like a fader on a console. So most or all of the color is going to come from how hard you drive the input, and then you can use this to balance it out. So the more you turn this input up, the more color and saturation you're going to get, and the more you turn it down, the cleaner it's going to get. So I'm going to walk you through that. I have removed every single plugin from the mix bus post this and bypassed all the hardware. So we're only running through these, and that is it on the mix bus. So here we go. Here's where I have it set now. Let's try turning these up a little like this, and we'll turn this down. Now to me, that's starting to get really obviously saturated. Let's go the polar opposite here. So here's a very clean example. Now, what's crazy is the peak volume on this setting, when it's much more saturated, is actually several dB quieter than the last one that you just heard. Even though it sounds way louder, it's actually significantly quieter. Now, that said, this is a bit aggressive on the saturation for me. I usually run it a little cleaner than this, but that just kind of gives you guys a range. But let's crank it all the way and see what we come up with here. Yeah, that's just ripping, and actually that was like 4 or 5 dB quieter on peak level. So that shows you how you can raise your LUFS with the saturation in these without raising your peak level. So it just makes everything bigger and more impressive and louder. That's the entire reason I have preamps on my mix bus. It's the entire reason I have a signature preamp. I spent endless hours testing a ton of different preamp pairs on the mix bus to find out which one sounded the best, which one had the saturation character that I liked the best, and the most important thing for me, which one raises LUFS the most, reducing dynamic range the most without imparting too much audible saturation on the mix. The reason why I spent years testing this, all while I'm cranking out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs, is because preamps matter and they all do a different thing. And once I found the thing that does exactly what I want in the best way that I'm looking for, I put my name on it. But you don't have to take my word for it. Literally anyone can run this test. Anyone watching who has more than one pair of preamps, if you have 2 pairs of preamps, strap them across your mix bus and listen to the difference. And if you want to get into the trenches even more, here's what I do. Every time I'm testing saturation character on a mix bus, I put any plugin or any preamp or any piece of hardware on my mix bus, and you turn it up until it gets too dirty, and then you back it off 1 notch. Once you've done that, you now have the maximum amount of saturation that you're willing to accept for that particular song. Do the same thing on the next tool, the next preamp, or the next plugin, and do it again and again. And once you have printed all of these examples, level match them by peak level, make sure they are all the exact same peak level, and listen to how every single one of them sounds like it's a different volume. They sound like they're a different volume because there's different EQ curves, and because every single preamp is better or worse at reducing dynamic range with saturation before it imparts too much saturation character, audible distortion on the music. The stereotypes of a Neve being warm and slow, and an API being fast, and an SSL being clean and tight, these didn't just come out of the ether by some propaganda machine. These stereotypes came from hundreds and hundreds or thousands of engineers making in the trenches, making records, thousands and thousands of songs, and repeating the same experiments over and over and over thousands of times, over decades and decades. When you track a drum kit on 100 songs through Neve preamps, and then you track that same drum kit in the same room with the same drummer and the same microphones 100 times through API preamps, the difference is super obvious. And those data points build up, those experiences build up over many decades and thousands of songs where it's very clearly audible. And it doesn't matter what your test equipment or what the meter says. Let me explain. Music isn't a science experiment, it's art. And music isn't numbers on a piece of test equipment. I've been in the trenches helping design gear for literally a decade. I've helped design guitar amps, I've helped design EQs, I've helped design compressors, and I've helped design preamps. I've compared the difference between transistors and inductors and transformers, capacitors and tubes. And the one thing I can promise you with 100% certainty is that just because it tests the same on a piece of test equipment, it absolutely does not mean that it sounds the same. I've proven this to myself and to other people here in my room while we're testing stuff over and over and over and over. Components that test the same sound different, and it's one of the reasons why there are so many vintage companies out there who have components that are worth so much when they technically make the same thing now, but it doesn't sound anything like it, because this was made with capacitors and resistors, and this was made with surface mount components, and they literally sound different, even though the circuitry is identical and the test results are identical. This is not some placebo thing. You can hear the difference, and it doesn't matter what the test equipment says, which is why every audio manufacturer that's worth their salt tests equipment on test equipment, but they also spend hundreds and thousands of hours listening to the difference, and you have to use both to come to the end result. So maybe Jim's Neve sounds shockingly similar to Jim's Scarlett, but it doesn't mean that all preamps are identical or sound identical. And it doesn't mean that you should not pay attention to what preamps you're using, because that is forfeiting a giant part of our art form. And it's the sole reason why I'm making this video, because that video is misleading people into making shittier art, because they're forfeiting an entire category of what will make their art sound different, of how to choose the best tools for the art they're trying to create. Now, I do agree that you should just make music with whatever you have, and I don't think anyone needs to go out and buy a vintage Neve or spend way too much money on preamps that they can't afford. You should make music with whatever you have, but you should also strive to work with the best gear possible and know the differences between them. Preamps matter, and there's my proof.